Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. And where we are actually is we're in the balcony of First COOKSTOWN Presbyterian Church. And I'm sure you will agree, this is a fantastic building. And there's a wee bit of history in this building, because what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the original communion table from the Old Town Church from 1673. Now, some sources would claim that the beginning of Presbyterianism in Cookstown was actually about 1642, but that the first ordained minister wasn't until 1646. And his name was the Reverend John Keith. And the first church then being at Old Town. And the next minister was the Reverend John Mackenzie, and he was ordained in Cookstown in 1673, which is the same age as the table. Now, he was one of 8 Presbyterian ministers who took refuge in Derry/Londonderry in 1688, and he actually remained in Derry during the siege as the chaplain, actually, of the Reverend George Walker's regiment. And he actually took part in the services, actually, in the cathedral there in the city. And there was also about 8 other ministers who actually fled to Londonderry with the Reverend Mackenzie, and they took refuge here during the siege. Now, in 1701, the meeting house at Old Town was pulled down, and it was actually moved to a site at Scotchtown within the Killymoon estate. Then in 1736, William Stewart, he planned a new town in Cookstown to be sited south of the original Cookstown. And of course, the original Cookstown was founded around 1620, whenever the area was actually leased to Dr. Cook. And it's quite a beautiful church, I'm sure you will agree with me. And you can see the stained glass windows as well. And Cook, of course, was an English lawyer. And so in 1642, the small hamlet of Cookstown was actually burnt by royalist troops. Now, having served the congregation for 60 years, the meeting house at Killymoon was proving inconvenient. And so a new site was sought, and it was acquired right in the centre of the new thoroughfare where the present church now stands. And of course, it was completed in 1764. Now, there was a big gathering here, a big synod met here in 1828. And in the 1820s, there was a controversy that arose in the Presbyterian church, and it was known as the Arian controversy. And Arius of Alexandria, who died in 336 AD, he denied the divinity of Christ. And it was reckoned in 1824 that in the Irish Presbyterian Church, that of the 200 ministers, actually about 35 were Arian in their doctrine. And so a climax was reached when the synod met in the Cookstown Church in 1828. So where you are here is actually where the synod met. It's fantastic when you think of it. And of course, Dr. Henry Cook, he spoke for the Orthodox, and Dr. Henry Montgomery spoke for the Heterodox. And so it's amazing to think that in this building, Dr. Henry Montgomery and Dr. Henry Cook actually took part in a debate. So fantastic history to this church when you think about it. And of course, the Orthodox won the day, because in 1835, the Synod made the law requiring subscription to the Westminster Confession of Faith absolute. And so this established the Presbyterian Church in the doctrine of the deity of Christ, or in other words, that Jesus is God, and also the doctrine of the Trinity. And so then in 1841, the old building of 1764 was taken down, and a new one was erected on the same site here. And you can see the ceiling there, and also the pipe organ. So quite a tremendous church here, and also quite a large site as well. And when the old original meeting house then was pulled down, the heavy communion table was preserved, and it was actually moved to Killymoon and then later to the present day site here. And it has been in use since 1673, and it's actually still in the present building today, although no longer in use. And this is it here, believe it or believe it not. This is fantastic. And I have two gentlemen here. I have Bob and I have Norman. So Norman, can you tell me what exactly do we have here?
Well, this is our old communion table, which was used at Old Town in 1673, and it moved then when Old Town Church was moved to Killymoon. It was the communion table went with it.
Fantastic. So quite a bit of history then here, Bob.
Yes, quite a bit. And well, Norman knows a lot of this history, and he would maybe take it from here. Yeah.
So what can you tell us, Norman, then?
Yes, First Cookstown Church is very proud of this communion table. I say it dates back a long, long time, and it went with the church to inside the Killymoon estate, which was 1701. The church was taken stone by stone from the Old Town when the Stewart family, who owned the Killymoon estate, was some 600 acres. The Killymoon estate started in 1666 when the Stewarts moved from Scotland there, and they allowed the Presbyterians some ground there, and the church moved in there, and they worshipped there for some 60 years, and the communion table took pride of place where they observed the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. And then the church took care of the communion table and moved it then to this third site here on Loy Hill, which was a very prestigious site in Cookstown, which was a developing town, again developed by the Stewart family, who were very entrepreneurial, and they spent a lot of money on Cookstown. Cookstown has a unique layout. It has a long main street, as most people know, and the Stewart family were very, very good to the natives. They encouraged education in the area, and they provided for the local people a lot of employment. Now, back to the communion table, it stayed in the church, but in later years it got neglected and was sort of sidelined whenever a more modern communion table was presented to the church. And in fact, it was gathering dust for many years until maybe 40 years ago it was located, and people realised just how old and how important it was, and we got it cleaned up and tidied up.
Fantastic.
And got a plaque put on it, and now we are quite proud that it is on display again, and people can look at it and realise just how important the past it is.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Could I just say that Killymoon plays an important role in Cookstown, and it has an important part in the history of First Cookstown, and Killymoon Castle and estate is now open to the public, and anybody that wants to visit there can do it by arrangement with the Coulter family, who have opened it up.
Yes, I believe they have tours there now.
They have tours, and you can organise that by bringing the castle and by booking in.
And I think it was you, Bob, that told me that some of the paratroopers, when they stayed in the castle, one young man of 17 years of age wrote his name on the wall, and they were able to trace him.
If I remember correctly, I've had two tours around Killymoon Castle, and I believe the name was maybe scrawled on the wall behind a mirror. And
Tony Vickery's name.
Tony
Vickery is his name.
Tony Vickery.
Yes, and he was traced then a number of years ago. Maybe Norman was at about 40 years ago.
He was part of the 82nd Airborne Division, part of the US troops. He was stationed at Killymoon from December 1943 until the 13th of February 1944, as the troops were preparing for D-Day.
Brilliant.
They then moved across to England in final training manoeuvres, and he was dropped in by a glider into France. Sadly, Tony Vickery, a young lad from America, he was killed 7 days after dropping into France. But his name is on the wall in Killymoon Castle in the cellars.
Fantastic.
And is still there. His family have been traced, and his photograph is on display in Killymoon Castle at the present time. Again, a very interesting story, but that's a story for another day, maybe, Mark, a different story.
Just very quickly, you mentioned the gliders there. Of course, the glider pilots actually trained at where the Maze prison used to be. Yes. They actually trained there for the D-Day invasions, didn't they?
They were made in the Ford factories in America.
Is that right?
Yep. They could hold one Jeep and 8 men, or they could hold maybe 20 men with parachutes on them. But Killymoon and Cookstown in general, Spring Hill, Drum Manor, McGuckin's Hotel in Cookstown, all had American troops staying there.
Is that right?
During World War II. Toronto Airfield down the road towards Lough Neagh also was an important airfield during World War II, but we'll not get into that history today.
No. Well, I better show them the table here. And so this is fantastic, guys, I have to say. It looks, and you were telling me, Bob, that actually someone was using this for mixing cement. They turned it upside down.
This is what has been told, that at one time,
my goodness,
when someone was doing some repairs about the church, it was turned upside down, and the inside of it we used to mix cement. But it was retrieved then and cleaned up on the
fantastic.
Quite well.
I'll show you just the inscription here so you can get a look at it. And you see there, it's communion table, First Cookstown Presbyterian Church, 1673 and 1701. And in the middle it says Old Town. So this table was first used in Old Town, and then Scotchtown, and then Newtown. So it's moved about quite a bit. So I'll give you a wee quick view just of the table, just to let you see it. And fantastic. It really looks in good condition, guys, I have to say. It has really been looked after in the church now, I have to say. Brilliant.
It's reputed to be bog oak. I'm not sure exactly, but that is what the people would tell you. And bog oak is a very strong and very long-lasting wood.
So that's maybe why it's lasted so long then.
Yep.
So there you go. I'll give you another review around the church just to let you see the church. And I see the Presbyterian Church are getting very modernised because of a set of drums. Yes, they're getting very up to date. So there you go. So thank you for joining me on the Church History Trail, and I would like to thank Norman and Bob for their contribution today. Again, if you enjoyed the channel, please like and subscribe. God bless.